Hello, and you've been met with a terrible fate because this is another episode of the Friendgame podcast. We're back again with episode 16. My name is Ian. Here again is my friend Alex.
Hi.
Hi. What's up, my guy?
Uh, you know, I'm tired. It's weird to see my room just like empty, but here we are.
Similar actually. At the time of recording this, we are 6 days out from moving,
Yep.
so it's slowly plinking away, packing everything up.
Yeah. Yeah. The fun part is gonna be unplugging my computer and then having to like live without the computer for like 8 hours. But
I'm literally gonna do that just like the morning of when we move.
yeah.
So, probably, yeah.
I'm like, yeah. I'm hoping to have things like just all ready and set so that it'll be a
You could do it like
transition.
when you go to like before you go to bed, the the day before even if you
Yeah.
wanted to.
Yeah, that's true.
You got plenty of time to think about that.
That is also true.
So for today, we got a kind of an interesting topic we've been kind of wanting to do, but not exactly sure how to do it. In episode 2, I believe, we did our big list of games that kind of our gaming history, I guess you would say. Um, Games we grew up playing and enjoy playing now, that kind of stuff. This is gonna kind of like be a spin-off series of that where we're gonna do a more of a deep dive on a series or two that we really enjoy and like go into more detail about why we like it, the games we played in the series, like how we got turned on to the series, and kind of you know um like how it's changed, what we excited for, what we like about it, things like that. So just we're gonna basically just gonna be an hour of us nerding out about a game series that we like,
Bet,
or
dude.
a series or two.
Oh
So
wait, I'm a part of this.
yeah, you're doing one, or I guess it's not just gonna be me talking the whole time, even though I probably could.
I mean, theoretically, if we're doing a topic like this, both of us could just like rant on for hours and hours, but
Yeah, for sure.
we're trying to control ourselves.
Trying to control ourselves and at least talk about because if it's just an hour of us saying, "Oh, this game's so good," "Oh, this game's so good," "Oh, it's so awesome," "Oh, remember this part?" Like that's not
It's not
informative at
informative at
all.
all.
Yeah, so we'll at least try to I'm because when I start talking about the series, a lot of what I like about it changes like based on what game it is
Yeah.
in the series. So that's interesting to me that they're all like basically like it's Zelda. I'm gonna talk about Zelda. No shit. So all Zelda games like kind of like there's a bit of a formula, but they're not all exactly the same, and that's cool to me.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a bit of what I'm gonna talk about is that kind of stuff. So
Look, Ian's already spoiling and jumping in right into it,
like, do you want me to keep going? Or?
guys. I mean, I think
So
I think we're done with announcements anyway. I mean, we
okay,
announced
sure,
kind of like the stuff, right? So
yeah,
this
sounds good.
episode.
I guess I can kick us off if you would like.
Ooh, start
Okay.
it.
So yes, as I've talked about many episodes, I'm a big Zelda fan. The first game I played was Wind Waker on GameCube.
Ah,
It was kind of it was the first game that I played to like actually play.
yeah.
When I had my GameCube, I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was a special disc where it had Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, Master Quest, and the demo for Wind Waker all on one disc. So I think technically the first Legend of Zelda game that I like booted up and hit start on was Ocarina of Time, but I like didn't really play it all because I was still like fairly young, so I kind of just like ran around and didn't know what the hell I was doing.
yeah.
'Cause I didn't want to like read text boxes or anything.
What? Understandable.
Oh yeah, so I did a little bit of that, like ran around in Majora's Mask, and I was like, "Whoa, this is weird," because like the beginning of Majora's Mask, you're Link for like less than a minute, and then you get turned into a Deku shrub.
Yeah.
So I was like, "Is this even the same game? It's so weird." So didn't play those, and then played the demo for Wind Waker because that was on that disc because that disc had come out before Wind Waker had, so that was like the if you wanted to get into Zelda, like here's the demo for the new game if you wanted to like get into it and try it out, whatever.
Mm.
So then after that is when Wind Waker came out and my dad got it and he liked it a lot and he played through it a lot. So then that's where I actually started to like I played the game to actually play the game.
Mm.
And it's really good. It was in hindsight I think a good one to start me on. My dad hadn't played Ocarina of Time or Majora's Mask, so he didn't know. But
Mm.
knowing what I know about them now, I think it would have been harder for me to get into the series if I had started with anything other than Wind Waker.
Yeah.
Just because of like it's like still 3D Zelda, but like they got better at making them
Yeah.
after like Ocarina and Majora's Mask.
Mm.
So there's like quality of life, just like the ease of the movement and the ease of the combat and the camera controls and stuff are all just way better in Wind Waker.
Mm.
And it's like I don't want to say like more kid friendly, but it's like Majora's Mask is scary. So like if I was a 10-year-old playing that game, I probably wouldn't have liked it.
You saying that reminds me of when I played Wind Waker, or not Wind Waker, when I played Ocarina of Time and I had to go down the well.
Yeah, that part's scary too.
That part is scary too, and that's
Like
where I
in
stopped
Ocarina,
as a kid.
even like the first dungeon in the Ocarina is the Deku Tree, and it's like really dark, and the music is kind of ominous, and there's like the big Skulltula spiders and stuff, and the boss of that dungeon's even kind of spooky too.
Yeah.
Yeah, Wind Waker's really good because it like the opening of the game was pretty. Even though it was like where you have the boat and you can sail the open seas, which sounds like it's too much freedom for like a handholdy kind of game, but it does a good job in the early game of just like making sure you can't get lost.
Right.
Which sometimes I did do in the other games,
Mm-hmm.
just because they're older and I don't know if they're like thought people were smart enough to do it without a lot of directions, but. I got lost in Ocarina all the time.
Yeah.
Like I had no idea what I was supposed to be doing.
Yeah, so. Ocarina is a little weird because as soon as you're done with the Kakaro,
the Kokori, yeah,
village?
the forest in the beginning.
Once you're done with that, you like they give you no direction on where.
Yeah, it kind of just spits you out. You're in Hyrule Field, and you're like, all right.
You're like, all right.
See ya.
But like, there's actually a sequence of events that you're supposed to do before you actually go and do things, which is really funny.
Yeah,
I find. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say because after you leave the forest, you meet the owl, and then you have to go to Hyrule Castle, sneak past all the guards where you talk to Zelda and learn all that stuff. So. But it doesn't explicitly say any of that. Yeah, so.
But did you get all that?
And then you accidentally hit no, and then you're there for another 15 minutes. Yeah, no, the song just rings in my head right now.
I do find it interesting that you started with the Wind Waker as like your first introduction to the Zelda series.
Yeah, and like I said, that was mainly because my dad played it first, so.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, give it a shot, dude. I don't know.
I do agree with you though that I'm pretty sure that my first Zelda game that I ever like pressed and turned on was Ocarina, but I never like actually played through it.
Yeah.
During that period of time.
Yeah, and in like again, like I'm saying, looking back now, if I would have had to do the things you have to do in Ocarina, like. The menuing is just like so bad.
Yeah.
Like the parts where you have to like I'm gonna like bring up the infamous water temple in Ocarina is just like god awful, horrible, confusing. But you have to do like you have to switch in and out of your blue tunic to be able to swim.
Yep.
But there's no like button to do that, so you have to like, I have to switch. So I have to press start, menu over, go through the menu, hit the blue tunic, press start, and then do the thing. And then to take it off, you got to press start again, menu over, go to the thing, click it, and then you have to do that at different times where you have to put on the iron boots to sync.
Yep.
You just have to go into the menu every time you want it to do that.
Yep.
And then there's the part where you have the hover boots too, where you have to like run, jump in the air, swap, switch to your hover boots so you can run across the thing. And I'm like, dude, there's no way 12-year-old me was gonna be able to do that shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then in Wind Waker, iron boots are still a thing, but it's the GameCube controller. And you could just like put your iron boots on one of the
On
buttons. So
one of
you
the
just want to
buttons.
put your iron boots on, you just hit Y and boom, you're good.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like,
That
and
was
that
a.
was just like kind of limitations of the technology at the time because
Mhm.
Ocarina and Majora's Mask were N64 also, I think, and I don't know
Yep.
how. I didn't play them on that, so I don't know how they did all that stuff. But
Yeah. My my first my first actual Zelda experience that I like went through and completed was A Link to the Past.
yeah, I did play that too, but just later.
Yep.
Because like I had a Super Nintendo, I just like didn't play that one that much. And that game's really good too. And ever since like playing that game, and then obviously like playing all the new ones and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of what makes like a good Zelda game comes from A Link to the Past. I've noticed,
Yeah.
and I think that that's pretty cool because that game was just super good, super popular. Um, just like everything good, like Light World, Dark World in that game is like not exactly re-replicated, but there's like that kind of style of like there's two worlds kind of going on in a lot of Zelda games too.
Mm.
And even if it's just like Ocarina is not exactly Light World, Dark World, but it's like child adult. It's like a similar kind of theme. So, and I think A Link to the Past is the first game with like a Kakariko village in it, which is just a staple throughout all the series,
Yeah.
pretty much.
Yeah.
So, and think I think Master Sword too, actually.
Yeah, I think the Master
I
Sword.
could be wrong on that one, but
Was the Master Sword the first? Was that the first introduction of the Master Sword? I think so.
it's one of the
Or
earliest.
is
But
it
I
one of the
know
earliest?
like it's like the theme of the Lost Woods being the hidden home
Oh,
of the
the
Master
home of the
Sword
Master Sword. Yeah.
is definitely starts in that game. I'm fairly certain, and that's a staple in a bunch of the games too. So
But
God, I have talked so much already. Holy
no,
cow!
no, but see, you can't stop now. But like,
Yeah.
you know, what's your favorite item from the series? Now I gotta ask the like random detailed questions.
I know, yeah. I think claw shot and by extension hook shot is always just a super cool item because they are different. Don't fucking hook shot, claw shot. And then double claw shot is just like awesome. Double claw shot is a Twilight Princess only. Um, what else? There's a lot of cool items. I wish they brought back more of like the weird items from like A Link to the Past, where you have like all the canes, all like the
Oh
magic
yeah,
canes, because like they're in that game, and then like that's kind of it.
yeah,
There are different items that have like similar effects in other games, or like instead of having like the ice cane and the fire cane, cane of Samaria, whatever, in Link to the Past, in Ocarina, there's like
there's the
they're not
magics.
the magic, like you just like an item and you press it and it does like a fire explosion or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, so those are cool, and there are in Breath of the Wild there are like fire and ice rods that are just like weapons you can equip that like you can throw fireballs with.
Okay.
That's kind of that, but the canes are super cool. The medallions are really cool in A Link to the Past too.
Yeah.
Like the big spell effects with like a cooldown, those are cool. Um, but yeah, I think my favorite would have to be hook shot, claw shot, just because those are just pretty unique items.
What tunic would you rock?
What tunic?
Yeah.
I like from like what game?
From any of the games. What like
I
what style do you like
well,
most of Link? Or which Link style do you like the most?
yeah. So I kind of have two answers because like Breath of the Wild, you kind of just like make your own outfit basically.
Yeah.
So in Breath of the Wild, what I run is I run the Hylian Knight legs, so it's just like legs from like a suit of armor. And then there's a like just like a Hylian tunic where it's like kind of like a modernized version of a Link outfit where it like has like the the classic like cloth tunic part with the like little leather patches for armor,
Hmm.
and then I like you can do like the dye system to change the color of your armor, so I just made it green. And then for the hat, I run if you do all 120 shrines in Breath of the Wild, you get the special edition there's like a set of it's like the Breath of the Wild version of the classic Link tunic, where it's like a little bit of a like a foresty green, and he has shorts because
Oh
he's
yeah.
supposed to be in the wild or whatever. So I run that hat. So it's like a modernized Link look with the same kind of long hat. So that's what I run in Breath of the Wild as my like Link look. But I think like classic other games look, Twilight Princess Link is just badass because it's the Link tunic with like chainmail underneath, so it's like actual armor, but he also still has the green getup.
You heard it here
That's
first.
that's sick.
He, there's
Twi-
Ian's.
Twilight Princess Link is like Twilight Princess Link fucks, like he fucks.
You heard it here first. Ian's fashion Zelda series question.
I mean, even Link in that game when he doesn't have the tunic, like he's got like the chest hanging out, like his shirt's not buttoned up all the way, like he fucks 100%. Like everyone, everyone in
100%.
everyone in Ordon Village is like, "Ooh, Link, what's up, my guy?" Link gets all the milfs in that game. Okay.
Okay, all right.
Whoa, okay, buddy.
So, so you've talked about like the games and stuff. Now you gotta talk about how the music is, right?
Jeez, yeah, that's another episode basically. But yeah, that's one of the high points of all the games for me. Is just like all the games that I have played and I've played a lot. Like basically every track in the game is just awesome because of like what it is. It's like an adventure action RPG kind of game. The the environments are all super cool, and the way to make the environments like feel alive and cool while you're in them is to give them good soundtracks, and that's what Zelda does super well.
Yeah.
Because like yeah, like there are a bunch of games where like a great example. I'm gonna probably reference Twilight Princess a lot because it's one of the best ones, but it's supposed to be like very adventurous because like you're grown up Link, you're out here, you're independent, you're doing your shit, and like the Hyrule Field in that game is just like one of the greatest tracks ever because it's like super upbeat, super adventurous. Like you feel like a badass adventurer when you're riding through Hyrule Field in that game because of the music. It's super awesome.
Hmm.
But that game's also supposed to have that kind of dichotomy of Hyrule and then the Twilight Realm, where Hyrule is like this high fantasy kingdom and has all these epic music moments and castles and all this shit. And then the Twilight Realm is like the Dark World basically, where it's like super spooky and scary and like you don't know what's gonna happen and all these creatures are like kind of roaming around and it's very alien
Hmm.
like. And the soundtrack for when you're in the Twilight Realm is less music and more like ambient, like weird noises, and that just adds to the atmosphere of it. Like everything is dark, and you like all the enemies like don't look like anything that's in real life. Very alien kind of, and even like the things that the Twilight beasts like come out of looks like an alien spaceship, so it just feels very weird. But like the music adds to that, and that's really awesome.
Hmm.
Because like even like the classic Zelda is like there's like the overworld soundtrack, but then there's just like a combat theme
Yeah.
for like when you're around enemies and like the fight music plays. And the fight music in the Twilight Realm is like barely even music. It's just like TV static and like weird noises and stuff. Like it's like actually impossible for me to explain, so you like probably just have to look it up. But it's awesome.
So then, what would you say is your favorite
God,
track?
I knew you were gonna ask me, and I like was trying to buy time to prepare, but it's actually impossible because I have a favorite for every game. Are you telling me to pick one? That's like picking a favorite child.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm telling you to pick one.
Uh,
The people must know.
people must know, huh?
The people must know.
Can I pick like a top three at least?
Uh, sure.
Okay, so it's 100%. Well, I don't even. Should I do it in order?
If there is no order, you preface it by saying in no particular order.
Okay, so in no particular order, top 3 Zelda tracks IMO are the Molgara boss fight battle, and that's the Wind Temple boss from Wind Waker.
Mm-hmm.
That's the one that goes, if you know that one. And if you don't, look it up and then replay what I just did in my mouth, and you'll understand what that meant.
We'll do a
That's
side by side comparison.
side by side. It's Molgara. He's like a big sandworm thing. That track's awesome. And then they redo it a little bit in Wind Waker HD, so it's like a little remix, and it's pretty good. And there's also actually, I'm pretty sure in Smash Ultimate, the Molgara theme is like reduxed, so that one's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I think so. Yeah, I think Twilight Princess Hyrule Field is one of the 3 too, because it's so awesome. And then this is where it gets hard because there's like 30 more. God damn it. The last one is Romance in the Sky from Skyward Sword, and it's the one that I've talked about in previous episodes. It's where it's after it's early in the game where Link has to do this like trial to like graduate from the Knight Academy. So you have to fly around on your bird friend and get the statue or whatever. So then afterwards, when you win, Zelda's like, "Oh, let's celebrate and go fly around." So it's like a sky date, and that's the music that plays during the sky date, and it's awesome. And then she gets swept away by a tornado, and you never see her again. So it's pretty cool. I mean, whoa,
whoa!
not
Spoilers.
actually. She does get swept away by a tornado, but yeah. Those come to mind as my favorites. There's like literally I could just like list 30 tracks right now.
That's true. You could.
Like the Zant theme is one of the final bosses in Twilight Princess. Is Zant has a theme, and then he goes through different phases of other bosses you've already fought in the game.
Mm-hmm.
So it plays those boss themes in like a redone, like Twilighty, like corrupted version all in a row, and that one's really cool just because it's like a mini boss rush inside one boss fight with all the music, and that one's really good. But yeah, I can't because I'm literally just talking about soundtracks for 9 hours. Ooh.
I'm sorry.
God,
You
and,
had
like,
to pick your.
I know, yeah. Yeah, and like
Sorry we
Breath
made
of
you
the
do that.
the Breath of the Wild music is like less like a track and more it's just kind of like atmospheric stuff. So it's still really good, but it's a lot of just like kind of soft piano kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But for the Giga nerds out there, you should go listen to the theme to Dragon Roost Island from Wind Waker, and then also go listen to side by side the theme that plays when you're in Rito Village in Breath of the Wild, and then your brain would explode. So just go do that. Dragon Roost Island and then Rito Village from Breath of the Wild. Just do that.
All right, put that on to your to-do lists.
Your brain will explode.
Your brain apparently will explode.
Oh, and then like also Zelda Lullaby is Ballad of the Goddess backwards, but we know that already.
I think you've mentioned that before.
That was in Jeopardy too. So.
Oh yeah. I do remember that. Yeah.
Oh yeah. How are we doing on time? I want you to have time to do the thing that I'm doing.
No, we're fine.
Okay. Sweet.
We're totally fine, dude.
Yeah. What else, man? Because that's another thing too. A lot of my favorite music is the boss fight themes,
Yeah.
and that's just because like the boss fights themselves are just really cool, and a lot of them are pretty unique.
Oh yeah.
Because like the general Zelda formula is like it's very like you like do some adventure, then you do a dungeon, then you do some adventure, then you do a dungeon. And a lot of the dungeons are like There's a lot of puzzles, and in most of them, you do a bunch of puzzles to get like the item. And every dungeon has an item that you get, and then that is the item you use to beat the boss. So that's kind of the formula.
Right.
And that makes basically every boss fight in any one game just completely unique from the last. Because, in boss fight 1, you use item 1, and then in boss fight 2, you use item 2. So you're never like using the same thing over and over, except for like your sword, obviously. So that is cool to me. Just like every boss fight has its own thing that you have to do,
Yeah.
which is cool. It teaches you how to use all of the items in the game, and then when you're outside the dungeon, there's like a bunch of other things you can use the items for. So I think that's a pretty cool like formula, I guess. I know some people a lot of people that I've seen, like for an example, when Skyward Sword first came out, a lot of people didn't like it for a couple of reasons. It was on the Wii, so it used motion controls that were kind of wonky sometimes, so a lot of people didn't like it because of that. But a lot of people didn't like it for the reason that it kind of broke the Zelda formula as it had been like established at that point
Oh, okay.
in a couple of ways. So one, it's kind of random. You should just like start with 5 hearts in that game instead of 3, like you did in like literally every other game. But also more things did an entire heart of damage in that game. So like it probably ended up not mattering.
Right.
But I just remember when that game first came out and I was like online just randomly looking at shit. Like a non-zero amount of people were like, "This game's so easy. I have 5 hearts. What the fuck?" And I'm like, they would just like play the game. But also it kind of broke the formula in the mold that had been set where you like do the adventure, do the dungeon, get the item. Skyward Sword doesn't do that throughout the whole game. And it's actually kind of cool because it establishes like the main antagonist early in the game, which a lot of Zelda games don't do. Right. A lot of Zelda games are just like, I beat all these bosses because I have to like collect some shit, and then I fight the final boss that I've seen on screen for exactly this amount of time at the end of the game.
Right.
But in Skyward Sword, the main antagonist isn't Ganon or Ganondorf because it's the first in the series, so technically Ganondorf's never been born yet, and yada yada, all the lore bullshit.
What? You don't want to go into your lore talk?
Okay, well, we'll do that after this. So the main antagonist in Skyward Sword for most of the game is this evil sorcerer warlock dude named Girahim. And you know that because he fucking tells you.
He's just like, yo.
He's like, yo, what up? I'm the bad guy. Let's fight. And then you fight him several times throughout the game. So, like, yeah, the first dungeon in the game is, like, it's the forest dungeon because, duh, the forest dungeon's always first. But it's not like you're fighting some big plant or anything. It's just, like, Girahim's there, and he's like, yo, what up? I'm the bad guy doing some shit, and you're in my way. Let's fucking do it. And then, so, like, that just establishes who the villain's gonna be right away.
Yeah.
So, like, you know what you're up against, and I think that's cool because like compelling villains make the story better for a lot of things, in my opinion. That's why Handsome Jack is so awesome, because he makes fun of you from minute 1 of the game, like, because it's awesome. So Girahim is the first boss fight, and then he just like gets into a bunch of shenanigans throughout the rest of the game. The second boss fight is the lava area because duh, it's always second. And it's not, you don't fight Girahim, but he's there, and he's the one that, like, the boss of the lava area is this big, like, magma, like, rock golem thing, and he's the one that puts it there, and he's like, yo, I fought you that last time, but, like, I got shit to do, so fight this instead. So, like, you're not fighting him, but he's still the one, like, driving the conflict.
Right.
And that's awesome, I think. So people didn't like that because, like, oh, I had to fight this guy and then I fought him again. That's so lame. And I'm like, no, I just like storytelling, dude. Yeah, so you fight him twice, and then at the final boss rush, he's part of the boss rush at the end. So like you do fight him more than once. So like I guess that is technically repetitive, but like it's a different fight every time, and like he like you have more shit each time because you've been doing dungeons this whole time, but like he has new like moves and abilities and stuff, so you still have to like learn new fights and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so like I probably like Skyward Sword more than the average Zelda fan, just because I like the weird shit that that game did. So
You're also a big fan of the lore, though, that it
I
implicates,
like
right?
the lore. Yeah, the lore like indicated in Skyward Sword is just fucking wild, and I like don't know how much I want to talk about it because it would technically be a spoiler, but the game's fucking 10 years old now. So like
Anyone that's
it
playing it is playing it
playing
like
it
on
playing
the.
it on HD on Switch, yeah, no. So like if you care, I guess turn this off because I want to talk about it because it's interesting. Um, so we've hinted about it in a couple of episodes where I've talked about Zelda, but the Zelda timeline isn't told in a linear way.
Yep.
Because I think, if I remember correctly, the first Zelda game ever, The Legend of Zelda, is like near the end of the timeline.
Yeah, it's in one of the routes, right?
It's in one of the routes, yeah,
Yeah.
because there's some alternate dimension time reality timeline bullshit going on.
Yeah.
But as far as the timeline goes, Skyward Sword is the first spot in the timeline. So yeah, that link in that game is every other link descends from that link, which is pretty cool. And that's like I said before, that's the reason why Ganondorf, the man, isn't in that game
Mm-hmm.
because Ganondorf, the guy, descends from the like it's like this some sort of primal evil in the universe that he's called Demise in Skyward Sword. That's like what he's referred to as. He's basically just like the god of evil.
Oh, okay, okay.
And that's why Girahim is in the game fucking around with shit because he like worships the god of evil basically,
Mm-hmm.
and um he's trying to resurrect him via this seal that is in what's referred to as the sacred grounds, which is on like Earth, I'll call it, like the
Oh.
surface. The Skyward Sword takes place because the main hub of the game is in the sky. Because before all of this happens, the god of evil and the one goddess Hylia kind of like have this thing, and she seals him away on the surface under this seal and lifts Skyloft into the air because that's where like the descendants of her like she's goddess Hylia, so like they become the original Hyruleans
Mm-hmm.
or Hylians, I guess you'll call them. Um, So then the reason why the goddess is resurrected into Zelda, who is the first descendant of the goddess, is because the seal is starting to break, and that's like how like the shit of the game starts going.
Ah, okay.
So then yeah, at the end of the game, this whole time you've been like Demise is trying to get out, and you have to go back and reseal him a bunch of times. And then like that's where you've been having the goddess sword this whole time, and you learn that the only way to fully seal him is to turn the goddess sword into its strongest version, and then that's the first master sword
Mm-hmm.
because you like forge it in sacred flames from all the different goddesses and shit. Um, so yeah, so that game like establishes the first master sword, which is pretty cool,
Yeah.
and so then you end up sealing him away, and you actually it's pretty cool. There's a big goddess statue on Skyloft in the sky, and you act in order to fully seal Demise back away, you drop the statue from the sky onto the seal, and then that becomes the Temple of Time, which is fucking sick.
Wow, that's actually really cool.
Because then if you fast forward and play Breath of the Wild, Temple of Time is in that game, but it's like in ruin because it's like been left because the calamity happens, and Breath of the Wild
Mm-hmm.
takes place a long, 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 long time after. The Temple of Time is in ruins, but that goddess statue is the biggest one in the game, and it's in the temple still, and it's fucking awesome. And then the super cool lore bit that me and like three other people noticed is your companion in Skyward Sword is the spirit that lives within the goddess statue. Her name is like Fi or Phi or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like your companion. She's like instead of Midna or Navi, you have Fi, who like lives in the goddess sword, basically. Since you turn the goddess sword into the master sword, she's still like the spirit of the sword, and like she can like come out and talk to you and stuff. Um, So like you can assume that the Master Sword, she's just like there in the sword the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
But there's really no mention of it in any other Zelda game. But
But
in the last cutscene, in the only way to get this cutscene is if you complete all of the memory side quest challenges in Breath of the Wild, where you have to go to different locations at the map and Link like remembers things that happened to him in the past because there's like 100-year time gap in that game.
mm-hmm.
In the final cutscene, after you do all of that stuff, you see what happens to Link and Zelda before the time jump, where like Link is injured in battle
Mm-hmm.
and he gets put in the Shrine of Resurrection and all that bullshit. There's like different cutscenes that reference like the spirit of the Master Sword, but in that cutscene, you see Zelda with the Master Sword after the battle and they lose. And you hear the sound effect that Fi makes in Skyward Sword as like the sword talking to her. And I'm
Oh.
just like, wait, there's no way they just reuse that sound effect for shits and giggles.
When you said that just right there, I imagined what your reaction would have been of you like standing up, hands to your
Yes,
head.
like literally. Like I'm like not even kidding. I heard that. I paused the game and then I got out my Wii U and then I booted up Skyward Sword and I'm like, there's no it literally has to be the same sound effect. So then I booted up Skyward Sword and I did the thing where you can summon her out to like talk to her to like save the game and shit. And it's like literally the exact same sound effect. And there's always been this like kind of like legend of like the spirit of the Master Sword and like the descendant of the goddess or the hero can like hear the spirit of the Master Sword.
Mm,
We now literally know what that means, and it's because Fee is still like the spirit of the sword. She's just like still chilling in there.
yeah. Okay.
And that was just like such a cool moment for me specifically because I was just like, bro, I like know what that wasn't just a random sound effect. Like I know what's happening here. That was just super cool, man. It was awesome. Because like you could even see in the cutscene, the sound effect happens, and then Zelda like does like a facial expression of like when you hear something, like you think someone's calling your name, you're like, what? Like she like does that, and it's just like so good, man. It's so good. Holy. But yeah, Skyward Sword is great just from a lore perspective because it starts the whole thing off. And it's kind of funny. They kind of play tricks on you in that game a little bit because if you know that going in,
Uh-huh.
and you know what Ganondorf looks like, he's like this big dude. He has dark skin because he's part of like the Gerudo, who are like a race of like people who live in the desert, so their skin is just really dark.
Yeah.
And he has the bright orange hair, like you've seen him in everything he's ever been in. There's an NPC in that game. His name is Groose, and he lives on Skyloft with you, and he's just like there's like the school bully character who's like the big
Oh.
like tough guy who's got the two guys next to him. They're like, I'm gonna beat your ass, and then he's like, yeah, he's gonna beat your ass. Like he's that guy. So he's a big tall guy. He's really strong. He's mean to Link. He has dark skin. He has orange hair. His name starts with a G. This dude's like Ganondorf, right? But no, he's just like an asshole, and Tobias is actually the Ganondorf. It's really funny. And it's I'm just like remembering all these funny parts now. When Groose is bullying Link, fucking Zelda she pulls a big sister and like gets up on his face and does like the pointing at him like really close to his nose. Like it's like so anime. It's like really funny. Cause then like you find out that Groose has a crush on her, so like he's like the big tough guy, but then she gets up in his face, and then he like starts blushing and shit and runs away. Like it's so funny. It's so good. Oh God, I gotta take a drink. Hold on. Oh yeah, I remember what we're talking about. Technically, we're talking about the lore. I've only talked about 2 games.
I mean, you know, I have to. I mean, those are the games that, like, you know.
No, yeah. Those are like the book. Those are the bookends.
Yeah.
The one other lore related thing that I'll say is, like I said, they don't tell the story in order. So like, Skyward Sword is it's like the second newest game, but it's the first in the series, technically. Um, the really interesting part of the timeline happens with Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, and then kind of like by extension, Wind Waker also.
Mm-hmm.
Because in Ocarina of Time, that's the one where you go back and forth between Child Link and Adult Link. Because that's the power that the Master Sword has in that game is when you pull the Master Sword out, Link ages by 7 years. So there's like a bunch of back and forth you have to do with child and adult. So in that game, that's actually where the timeline of Legend of Zelda splits into 3 parts. The first part is child, where there's a timeline that happens when Link is still a child, and that just like continues in a direction. And then adult Link has 2 paths, the one where he's an adult and he succeeds and he defeats Ganon. And then there's like a timeline after that where Hyrule is sent in this trajectory. And then the third is when adult Link fails to defeat Ganon and the world is like plunged into darkness basically. And that's where like the third axis goes.
Mm.
So then that's where a lot of like different intricacies and like the games that technically like if one game is technically in this timeline, you'll see different things that like stay consistent within that timeline, but then are different in this one, which is pretty cool. Because I know I was watching a video the other day that says in one timeline the Zoras exist, and the Zoras are like fish people basically.
Mm.
In another timeline, the Rito exist, and that's where like the timeline diverges. In the Rito are like bird people.
Mm.
Who like have wings and beaks and stuff.
Yeah.
But interestingly, in Breath of the Wild, both of them exist, both the bird people and the fish people. So people are theorizing that there's a 3-way break in the timeline at that point, but then somehow at some point in time they reconverge because that's the only way that both of those races could exist at the same time. But we like don't know like when or why that would happen, or if it's just like a coincidence.
Right.
I hope it's not a coincidence because that like they've thought everything else out. So
True.
so that's a little interesting tidbit that Ocarina actually spouts out into 3 timelines technically, because then Majora's Mask is in the dark timeline, I think. Where like the true ending of Majora's Mask is that Link fails to save this world from the moon like crashing into the earth, and then what follows that is Wind Waker, because technically it's the same kingdom, but the goddess tells all of the descendants, like the people that live in Hyrule, to go start living on the mountaintops, because then the entire world starts to flood. And that's the reason why the world is now like a giant ocean with a bunch of islands, is because they're not actually islands, they're just the tops of mountains that people have settled on now because the entire world flooded. And then also, spoiler alert, that's why Hyrule Castle is underwater in that game, because it's in the same spot it's always been, it's just the world is flooded now. So that's pretty cool. And there's like some super cool lore implications on like what happens at the end of that game with the Triforce and like the king and stuff, but that's small.
How you feeling?
It's so good. My throat hurts.
I think this is the longest that you've talked, like in a row.
Probably in like a year.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, it's the games are pretty good. You can play them if you wanted. Breath of the Wild 2 is coming out next year.
Are you excited?
But I'm pretty excited about it.
You gonna pre-order Skip?
Huh?
You gonna pre-order and then skip working?
Oh yeah, no, I'll fall off the face of the planet for a couple of days when it comes out.
Okay.
For sure. We haven't seen a whole lot about it. We've seen like a 90-second trailer where we actually got gameplay this time, so that's kind of cool. And then the release date was like way sooner than I had expected, but I'm really not holding my hopes up because the first Breath of the Wild game got delayed like 6 times. So. But then it ended up being good. So.
When Nintendo delays things, at least are good.
It's It's usually for a good reason. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just a streamer I was watching the other day that was complaining about Breath of the Wild and how like the weapon system and shit works because like all the weapons like have they degrade over time and then they break.
Yeah.
So he was complaining about like I have to work to play the game. But my counter argument to that is always because my dad said the same thing when he played. He's like, I hate that my weapon breaks every 5 minutes. It's horrible. And then my counter argument is always like the game just like literally throws weapons at you. Like if you have the problem of my weapon breaks too often, and then also have the problem of I don't have enough inventory space, those things fix themselves. Like if you never have enough inventory space, then just like break your weapons more so you can pick up shit.
Just throw the weapon. Easy.
Yeah, and then like if you want to pick up some shit, just like use your weapons and then they'll break. Don't complain about them breaking because like you're gonna find another weapon in literally 30 seconds. The game just like throws loot at you. But that's like if that's holding anyone back from playing the game is that your weapons break,
Like,
you'll have enough. You'll have enough. Like it'll be fine. God, that game's really good. Shit.
man.
I think I'm done.
You're done?
I don't know. I'm like I could definitely talk more, but
I just I just let you do your thing.
yeah, I mean I don't. I mean, like, what else? Do you have any random questions that could stump me?
No, I don't.
All right.
I don't know too much about Zelda.
Yeah.
I'll be honest.
I will say there is a Zelda game for everyone because like they are all pretty like they'll like I said they all kind of follow a formula, but like there's different enough things about them that they're cool.
Mm.
So it's like Skyward Sword has like a collecting and crafting system that none of the other games have, which is pretty cool. Breath of the Wild is like the biggest game, so if you want like a big game to play, that one's good. So they all have puzzles in them. So like if you like that kind of game, like an adventure puzzle-y game,
Yeah.
because there's even some puzzles that like obviously I play the games a lot, and there's some that I still have troubles with all the time. So
Yeah.
one of my favorite memories actually is back when Twilight Princess first came out. There's a certain puzzle in the Sacred Grove where you're going to find the Master Sword, where you have there's these two statues, and the puzzle is you have to get them back to their original positions, and the way it works is you're like standing on a grid, and whenever you move, like let's say you move to the right on the grid, one statue moves to the right and then one statue moves to the left. And then whatever way you face, one faces the same way, one faces the opposite way. So you have to get them to kind of move around the grid in this like puzzly kind of fashion. And the first time I was doing it, I like literally couldn't do it. Like it was too hard. My brain was too small. So my mom, who does not play video games at all, and I'm like, Mom, you're smart. Help me do this puzzle. This is how it works. Tell me where to go. And she told me how to go, how to do it, and she like did it like for me. So that was super cool. I was just like, yeah, like here's the grid. I have to get them to be here, and this is how they move. And then she was like, oh yeah, just do this. I was like, wow, geez, my mom's a fucking PhD. I literally still have a YouTube video in my favorites folder on YouTube of the solution to that puzzle because I like sometimes just like can't do it.
Sometimes you're just like,
sometimes I'm like, I've played this game for like actually 15 years. I just need easy mode today.
Understandable.
That game's really good. Wow, that game's so good. What the? The dungeon in that game, there's like the Savage Labyrinth is always a thing where it's like waves of enemies and you keep going down levels and it keeps getting harder and harder. Twilight Princess 1 is just like so good. Damn. Okay, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm done. I'll be done. I'll be done. I'll be done. Alex, what series have you come to talk about today?
Oh, God. that was just like, oh man, I just let you go because I knew you had a lot that you just wanted to talk about. Oh my goodness. Uh,
Uh, I'm gonna be cringing the entire time listening to this one back. Holy.
well, I mean, you did it to yourself.
You're right.
I had a hard time trying to choose something. I can give the honorable mention. I'll give the honorable geeking out over something to the Lobotomy Corporation and Library of Ruina World / because those two games just don't. They're not the same game, but
Yeah.
they exist in the same
Yeah.
world, and I have to mention them both because they make sense when everything makes sense when you understand the first game and then you go to the second game. So,
That world is super interesting, and I've never played any of them. So
the weird yeah, it's such a weird
like
world.
a weird dystopian. I don't even know how to explain it.
Yeah, me either.
Yeah, I just know that everyone's super fashionable in it. So
fashion game is strong in that game. That's for sure.
all the characters just look super cool.
The reason why I'm giving this the honorable mention is because technically Library of Ruina is still in early access, so the game actually isn't even out yet. But I love that game so much, and I enjoy that game so much
Are they adding more to it, or is it like pretty much done at this point?
I think right now, I'm assuming that a lot of it has been, or what I've seen is it's been a lot of balance patching, and I'm pretty sure that they're working on development for console right now. So.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
So,
okay.
They're trying to transfer things over to make it more playable for console users. The game's super good. Turn-based. It's a turn-based RPG with cards that use dice, and that's like
it's like a weird deck builder, but also dice rolling game. It's weird.
Yeah. The actual combat, the actual gameplay is super interesting. Deck construction is really fun in the later half because they really ease you into the game on the difficulty scale. The game will feel pretty. The game will feel pretty slow to start because it's still you're still learning the overall combat. But once you learn the basics to combat, then you start getting cards that do different things. So now this card will let you draw, or this has a unique gimmick to it, to where you need this condition to get a bonus to this. So deck construction becomes very interesting. Not only deck construction, but it's also the character's abilities, because they're all tied to essentially enemies that you've beaten in the past now become your gear, your equipment. So then now when an enemy had an ability that you thought was kind of OP, once you beat them and you get their stuff, now you can use it and but mixing your own kind of twist on that, which is a really cool feature. The visuals in that game, I actually love the art style. I think the art in Library of Ruina was really good. Lobotomy Corporation was kind of simple, and you definitely notice the difference, and it kind of sets the tone differently too. When you switch from playing Lobotomy or you see Lobotomy Corporation's old art over how Library of Ruina is, because when I initially saw Lobotomy Corporation, I was like, oh, this game looks kind of cute with all the little characters walking around.
I was gonna say, I think that's the point.
Right. It kind of throws you off. Your first time seeing the workers walk around the facility and stuff, and then they're all getting brutally murdered because you work.
I think
in
it
an
also
Foundation.
Yeah, it also has to do with when you're looking at the game, you're looking at a lot of the characters from kind of far away.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that they're not super detailed because when you're playing the game, you have like a bunch of like those room like chambers like on your screen at the same
Yeah,
time. So like there's a lot of moving parts. So it makes sense that they're simpler in design.
yeah, yeah.
But they're still cool though.
Yeah, I definitely was th- I do enjoy the like atmosphere that Lobotomy Corporation brought to like to to just that kind of like simulation, that like caretaker simulation kind of game. Because like that was different, and I had not seen anything where it's like, hey, you're not taking care of monsters. You're like you have something that you need from these monsters, but you gotta like tend to their needs and make sure that they don't just like go on a murder spree in your facility.
It's like if it was Monsters Inc. but reversed.
Yeah. Um, that's so true, actually. But I played that game for a little bit. Didn't really like that. Personally, I just like that's not the kind of game for me. The card game is more for me because it's not only a deck builder, but it's also a turn-based like combat game, and it looks super confusing at first, but like what you just gotta spend your time with it and learn the ups and downs. The game's still getting updates too, so like things are changing, and old things that I kind of like found annoying are being changed to be better. So
That's good.
yeah, because that was a question that I always got whenever people were like watching me play the game was like, what's going on? I don't understand what's happening.
I said that a lot whenever I see you play that game.
Yeah, it's always like, what's going on? What's happening? What does all of this mean? Was it and I'm like, yeah, the combat, like the overall like combat gameplay is kind of weird, but it doesn't like once you actually play it, it makes a lot of sense. All the dice do different things. Some dice or the dice work in different ways. It's really good. It's super good. The story is actually like really interesting too, because the way the story is told out in Library of Runa is essentially you are inviting guests from the city. So there's like the lore of it is like there's this like city. There's this big city, and it's run by all of these big corporations. And it's like it's dystopian because there's not a lot of law in the city. There's a lot of like weird shit that happens in the city as well. There's a lot of illegal work that happens. So essentially what it is that the library is a like entity that exists kind of outside the city, and you are inviting people from the city into the library to to like gain access to the books and knowledge of the library in exchange for potentially their own life, because they are invited, and if they win the battle if they win the battle, they keep their life, and they also gain the books that were promised to them on the invitation. But if they die in the library, they are then turned into books and stored in the library. It's kind of weird, like.
Yeah, it's just like fucked up, dude.
Yeah, that premise is like really interesting, because then like now you ask the question of, are you really like, who's the good guys, who's the bad guys? And the short answer is that like, is there really a good guy and bad guy in this scenario? Because you both like are kind of bad people in general.
That is interesting.
The main protagonists of the games are cool. Like, each of the characters have different personalities. They're all funny in their own way.
They're all so cool.
They're all really cool looking.
Jeez.
Like, their looks in Lobotomy Corporation were great because they were all like suit manager kind of like characters, and then you move into Library of Runa where they're all like Patreon librarians, and they're all like really fancy kind of like old, you're kind of like old librarian kind of look, which was really cool. Man, I could talk about that game a lot.
That's what we're here to do.
Yeah, but that's like the general gist of like what the overall objective of the story goes. But the way that the story is kind of told is that it's told in these like short episodic things where you are shown a vision of, or you're shown like moments of the person you're inviting's like life, essentially. So like you get to see what they've been up to before they come to the library, and learn more about like what they do, what characters, what those characters do. But you're also learning more about the city in a way, because you might like be in the back streets at one point, and now you're in like kind of a fancier like corporate part of the city in another episode. So it's a little episodic, but it all ties together in the end by essentially showing you more and more of what's been going on in the city, and what events have occurred around that that they're all talking about, that's like weird and going on there.
And then there's a train.
Yeah, so as of I think like 2 months ago, there's been like a subtle hint of a new game on the horizon from them, and it's called, the image and the title that we've seen is called Limbus Company, and it's got an image of a train, and Limbus is like train, and like that's generally a pretty big hint into like what's going on, or like what's gonna happen, because in Lobotomy Corporation, the like lore is, well, you work for L Corp, Lobotomy Corporation, and that's lobotomy is things to do with the brain. So it's like in that game they were extracting monsters from people's brains, like these nightmares from people's brains, and they were then using those monsters to draw energy, to fuel facility needs and stuff, which is also really weird and interesting. There's a lot of weird like little bits of detail lore that exist. I still have to read through all the characters to like understand all the different like associations and corporations that exist in that world, but there's a lot of cool stuff. The deck building part is what I think Ian would enjoy the most, personally.
Yeah, probably.
because they get pretty cool. Boss fights in that game are really cool. The music in that game is actually really good.
I haven't played the game, and I just like listen to the music sometimes. So
the music is actually really good. So there is a main battle theme, and then each floor has sort of like their own rendition of that kind of main battle theme, for the most part. I think there's, I want to say, there's a couple floors later that like they have their own kind of unique theme, but for the most part there's like a subset of floors that was to have the same kind of twist on that battle theme, which is really cool.
And some of the music is kind of creepy for the
oh yeah.
The creepy parts too is awesome.
Yeah, the music, the music for like the weird monster fights are really really interesting. And this game has music by Millie, which is one of my favorite artists out there, music artists
Really
out
good.
there. And that's the big reason why I even decided to play the game. And their music is really creepy sometimes, because you're like, oh, this is really upbeat, and then you listen to some of the lyrics and you're like, this is really weird.
Yeah.
Nah. But if you are a fan of weird shit, I would definitely say check that out. Like, check those games out, or check just like the worlds out because it's pretty wild. I recently found out that they have they have like a web novel that takes place in that world.
Oh, interesting.
And it has been translated. So I was like, oh, well, I'm really interested in this world, so I guess I'm just like, now I have something to read.
There you go.
So, but enough about the honorable mention.
Yeah, that was just the honorable mention.
That was just the honorable mention. Like, I love that game. I think that like the world is really interesting. I think the gameplay is awesome. Music's awesome. I could go on and on about like the intricacies of like the combat and the deck, but it wouldn't help because I think that visual for that game is really well needed. If you were to ask me, what my favorite, because like Ian hasn't played the game, so like,
yeah, I have not.
I think that my favorite, gosh, it's so hard to choose. Like no, actually, I would say that my favorite floor that I've used in that game was Hod's floor. It was pretty straightforward floor. I've heard things about like some people suggesting, oh, they should really buff that floor, but I've always found success with it with a lot of the stuff a lot of the combat, and they gave it a huge buff to like make it even easier to use. One of the unique things about it, but that's my favorite floor. It's the floor of literature.
Because the floors are basically just like the level, like the areas in which you choose to have the battles.
Yeah, they are the essentially the stage that you get to choose, and that's
okay.
Like, right. That's like the group. That's like the party that you essentially. It's like you get to choose which party goes in and or that the enemy fights, and each of the floors is essentially like its own party. So you can set up like one floor to be a party of like a certain damage type, and then you can have another floor where this is the theme of that floor. So to sort of help combat certain encounters that might be harder for other floors. God, what boss fight would even be my favorite? Oh, I think I would say that.
I just remember some of the weird ones that you were doing.
There's some really good ones. All the realizations are really cool. I would say though that the coolest one and the one that threw me off the most is Love Town. And as much as because I started playing this game after the early access release of Love Town, and I started playing later in its early access release. So I was seeing all these memes about, oh, we don't talk about Love Town. And once I finally got to Love Town, everything made sense.
Oh, that's why.
Yeah, everything made sense, and that boss fight was definitely an experience. And it makes me really excited to to wait and see how other people I've recommended play the game when they get there, because I think that's going to be a really funny reaction.
I just because I think I knew what one you were talking about, but I just looked it up to be sure.
But yeah, that I think that boss fight is really, really good, and very. It's like the first really big boss fight that happens that you're just not prepared for.
Right. Reality check.
Yeah, it's definitely a reality check. The game series that I actually wanted to talk about, I'm gonna actually move on from this before I just continue going on, is Dark Souls.
That's what I thought you were gonna do.
It's the game that I know the most of. Like, it's the game that I've been around the most. Another one that I could actually talk about is Divinity, because we did play Divinity 1 and 2.
We did play that a lot, yeah.
So, I do know the differences of the game systems, but not really the world. Whereas in Dark Souls, or the Soul series worlds, like, I've played those games, and I've also just kind of lore dumped myself. But yeah, Dark Souls. Ooh, oh man, where do I even start? This game, I started playing the Soul series at Demon Souls, and that game does not pertain to Dark Souls in any way, shape, or form. But the combat is pretty similar. Still better in Dark Souls, I'd say. But
that is the one that I have never played.
Demon Souls.
Demon Souls, yeah.
Demon's Souls.
Sorry. Demons Souls.
That's a game. That game is like weirdly level based.
Mm-hmm.
Because of how like the world layout is, because you have essentially 5 worlds to choose from, and then you progress through each section of those levels essentially. So like that's where in that game there's the community kind of goes by like, oh, you know, you start in 1-1 because that's world 1 section 1 essentially, the Bolitarian Palace.
The Archstones.
Yep, each of the Archstones, and each of the Archstones goes into different worlds. So each of the locations is different, but each of those locations also are locations that you'll find in modern day Souls games in general. Where did you get the swamp place in Dark Souls? Hey, guess what? That happened in Demon Souls, and everyone hated it there too.
Dude, FromSoft loves their swamps, and they love making them just fucking awful.
They get progressively worse up until Dark Souls 3. I think Dark Souls 3 was the most tolerable swamp, I would say.
Yeah.
Because in Demon Souls, it was just like a big, wide open, poison swamp with like small islands every now and then that like forced you to go into direction. But if you wanted to taper off, and like you just lost because there's nothing around there.
And fucking Blighttown.
Yeah, Dark Souls, Blighttown. Everyone knows about Lower Blighttown. Upper Blighttown was a misery as well, because it's just a bunch of rafters. You have to walk around these these rafters.
Like a bunch of moving platforms. And there's like the enemy density is actually just like wild in that area too.
Yeah, I know. And then there's like a bunch of archers around that.
There's a bunch of flying enemies that like, even if you like leave a floor, like you go down a level, like they just like fly after you.
Yeah, they just like slowly fly down to you.
All the bugs and everything. Yeah, it's gross.
Dark Souls 2. There was a swamp in Dark Souls 2 too. I don't remember.
Well, there's a
bunch of swamp sections now.
There's the Shrine of Amana, which is like not exactly a swamp.
Oh, that's the poison temple, isn't it? Right?
No, that's
oh no, Shrine of Amana was the
with all the water.
The water, yes.
Yeah.
Like
that's not necessarily a swamp.
Area. Oh my goodness.
But it's just like, yeah, you're just walking through water the entire time.
Oh, that was even worse than of all the swamps, that one arguably is one of the worst. Because there's
all the sorcerers, mages that are shooting all the tracking bolts at you.
Yeah,
that part sucks.
Yeah, that part sucks.
And you get rewarded with one of the best boss fights in the game, though.
And then was it Dark Souls 3 is Farron Swamp. That one's not too bad. Like, it was pretty after dealing with the others, that one arguably
not too
is
bad.
not that
you
bad.
you can dagger weapon art through it all.
Yeah, quick step through all of it. Oh man. The combat in Dark Souls has only honestly gotten better.
I would agree with that.
I would say the combat has definitely gotten better as the series has gone on. I would say the build diversity kind of like was a little worse though, as a result. But that's due to how they had to balance things. Lore wise, that game is full of a bunch of like different stories. There's
yeah,
so
you could entertain yourself for a long time reading about Dark Souls lore,
yeah.
or like watching videos even.
Yeah, I will say that my favorite lore is the story of Artorias, and I know that a lot of other people will agree with me that Artorias' story is one of the most interesting.
I actually don't know a whole lot about that.
About Artorias, the Abyss Walker?
Yeah, I know he was like the first to like go into the abyss or something. Or
He is one of the 4 Knights of Gwyn.
yeah, because there's him and Ornstein.
Syrian, which is the assassin character that you see after you fight against him, against Artorias.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah.
She's the one at his gravestone, and
then the
Hawkeye. I don't remember what his name is, but he's the giant. He's the giant in the tower in the DLC.
When you fight against
Calamite,
the dragon,
there you go. The black dragon. Yeah, but he's the knight that first walked the abyss and he went to Ulasil because the abyss was spreading. So essentially, his lore is also the lore of Ulasil and Manus and the abyss, which is like why it also reoccurs in
Dark Souls
3 is because their bloodline is essentially following the bloodline of Artorias, the Wolf Knight. He's also known as the Wolf Knight because first he has a pet wolf, Sif, that everyone is sad about that they had to kill, and he was also known for his skills with the greatsword because he was also left-handed, and he wielded a great shield in his right hand. But you'll notice that in Dark Souls, the DLC, when you fight him, he's wielding his sword in his right hand because his left hand is broken. So he's like fighting you handicapped and can still kick your ass.
Yeah. And he like does flips and shit.
Oh yeah. His fighting style is still really cool. He's still acrobatic, wielding like a greatsword, which is crazy.
And it's cool that the Abyss Watchers from Dark Souls 3 like kind of mirror his moveset too.
Yep.
Which is really cool.
Yeah. His story is my favorite story. He's also just like my favorite character from the series because I just think he's really cool. Although he doesn't win my best Dark Souls boss fight.
Oh, okay.
I don't remember what the dragon's name in Dark Souls 3 is.
Midir.
Dark
Eater Midir.
Wow. I did not think...
That's a fight.
I did not think that they could do a good dragon boss fight that would, like, beat my expectations of some of the other fights in the game. Boy, was I wrong when that happened.
A lot of the other dragons are just like... Run away, hit the butt.
That okay. Like it was a 2-way tie. Like initially of what's his name? I don't remember his name. He's the main guy in the Dark Souls 3 DLCs. The red hooded dude.
Oh yeah, Slave Knight Gale.
Gale. That's it. Yeah. Gale's final fight.
Gale's fight is really good.
Is really good. Is really cool. It's like it's a spectacle.
It's multiple phases and each one is super different and
he's
wild.
Like huge buff and like he's also wielding a greatsword. He's like the closest thing you could get to the Artorias fight. In
because
Dark
he
Souls
jumps
3.
around and shit too. Yeah. And he's got a crossbow, and he has lightning, and he has like fire, like a fire skull cape.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, like it's really cool. Okay, but then I fought this dragon once, and I was like, God, this is really hard, and I hate it. And then I fought it again after like learning, after learning, and I was actually able to like appreciate all of the like detail in him because he's just so big
he's huge.
for like a scaled dragon in the Soul series. He's huge. I think the only dragons that like beat him in size are the Dark Souls 2 ones. The Ancient Dragon, which is huge and also sucked as a boss fight.
Yeah.
But he's huge. All his breath attacks are awesome to just like see. Like,
yeah, and it's like it's that cool like black and white dark fire too.
Yeah, because
it's awesome.
like he's corrupted.
He's like an abyss dragon, basically.
Yeah, and he's like shooting laser beams out of his mouth too. Oh man.
And he's blind.
That like just
cool.
that fight in general was a test of my time and patience, but was so satisfying, and it was just awesome. And it's my favorite boss theme from Dark Souls.
Good music too, yeah, for sure.
So good. The subcategory that we'll go into here is Bloodborne.
This is the game that I played the most of. And I like artificially know a lot about the Souls games, not because I've played them a lot, because Alex has played these guys way more than I have, but I'm into speedrunning, and the Souls speedruns are all really good, so I know all the bosses too, but that's not because I've played them.
Yeah.
I've played all the games at least once, but I just see the speedrun more often than that.
Yeah. I love the Soul series. I was so like desperate to play Bloodborne when it initially came out that when my aunt bought a PS4, I like wanted to, or I tried to make every excuse possible to like stay over at her place just so that I could play Bloodborne.
That's awesome.
Like it was bad. Like I wanted to play the game really bad, and when I finally was able to, it was so worth it. Oh my goodness.
Bloodborne's a really good game, dude.
It must just like. I also just love the kind of like Arkham horror, like Eldritch, theme vibes, because like we play a bunch of board games with those themes too. But Bloodborne also just like it does it so well to like
that genre is a little underrepresented in video games, I think. And it was really cool.
Like I love that theme, and I also like the combat in the game. Like the game just feels so good.
All the weapons are so cool. All the trick weapons are just amazing.
Yeah. All of them are super cool. All the monsters are like scary. They're like actual beasts, like people morphing into beasts because of the thing that's going on in the game.
It's super cool how like that is like what the game becomes is not what you think the game is going to be about at the start.
Yeah.
If you think like, oh, it's this like what's even like the aesthetic is very like Victorian age, like people in top hats and monocles and stuff.
Yeah.
Driving around carriages, and then like all the enemies are like beast like they're all like werewolves and stuff. So you're like, oh, this is gonna be like a vampire werewolves game, and then it just like turns itself on its head, and you're just like, oh, this is an H.P. Lovecraft game. My bad.
You're like, why is
like
was it madness, right? Is that the mechanic?
Insight,
yeah. The first time you gain insight, and then you're like, why is there that thing on the wall?
Yeah. Or it's just like it goes from all the enemies have like claws and fangs until all the enenemies have tentacles and 600 eyes. They have 600 eyes, and they're not where they're supposed to be.
Was it or was it you'll be walking down a tunnel, and you're like, why is there a giant pig? And then you get a closer look at the pig, and you're like, why does the pig have a bunch of eyes?
Yeah, pretty much.
Man,
that game's really good. All the music in that game
The
is
music in
fire
that game is
too.
awesome, and it's the sole reason why Dark Souls 3 has amazing music as well.
Yeah, they learned a lot
They
and did it well
yeah,
in Bloodborne, so they carried it over.
yeah, they learned a lot from Bloodborne. Bloodborne was such a good game. It felt so good to play. All the bosses were a treat. Like all the DLC bosses were also a treat. If you're wondering why I'm giggling because the Orphan of Kos
Or some say Cosm.
is is a fight.
You ever want to be beat to death by a skinny infant wielding a placenta? Like, this is the game for you, man.
That's one way of putting it. Yeah.
Literally what he is. He's 1 hour old. He crawls out of the womb and then beats you to death with a bloody stump
Yeah.
and lightning.
Yeah. True. And then he grows wings.
Yeah, then he grows wings.
Oh man, dude.
I was watching.
That game is a bunch of weird stuff.
I was watching a streamer do a new game +7 viewer run earlier today. Right, he got his save to new game +7, and then he summoned people to fight the bosses, and then he sat there and did nothing. So it was a viewer run speed run.
Oh, that's really cool, actually.
And it was like, yeah, Lawrence took 3 hours.
Oh my god.
It was awesome, just because it's new game +7, so all the
Yeah.
bosses have just like 900% health and like one shot you.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, that's a game series that I appreciate a lot that I've played too. They're hard games, but they're also really good games.
They are hard. Those games are like super rewarding too. Just like when you get something,
Yeah.
like the more and more that you do it, the better you are at it. And then there's like so many different like weapons and builds and shit you can do. Like every playthrough of any of the Souls games could be completely unique from the previous one, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah. You can find the same like weapons in each game, but like sometimes those weapons don't act in the same way that they used to.
Mm-hmm. Like even in one game you can do a dex build or a strength build or a magic build or a ranged build and like a bunch of other different things that are like obviously some are better than others, but that's what I enjoyed about them was like my first run I used Saw Cleaver and Beast Blood pellets, but then after that I did some other stuff too.
Yeah, there's always a meta, but most of the metas are like not. It's not needed. You can play the game any way that you want in that game. Really, I played a mage the first time I ever played those games, and that was not the easiest thing in the world. But actually, I take that back. That was really easy. I never got hit because the AI was not super duper great. But as I got better at the game, I went with more melee centric builds, and those were fun. Because then you really feel how good you get when you're dodging,
you need to dodge
and
everything. Yeah. Dark Souls 3 is a good game, man. All the areas in that game too are just like they got better at like designing unique areas.
Yeah.
So those are cool.
Yeah. I also loved all the callbacks in the DLC too.
Yeah. I didn't get a lot of those at first because I had played Dark Souls 1 less, but yeah.
It all makes sense in the end. Yeah, that's a series I wanted to talk about. Otherwise, I'm just,
a good series. Maybe I'll put up Dark Souls 3 soon here.
Like I've been saying, or like I said last podcast, the world that I've been delving myself into has been the Toho universe. So that's been a treat. It's been fun to learn all the characters and figure out which one Ian would like. I can explain.
I know like 2 characters. So.
That's true. You only know like 2 characters, but there's actually a larger list than I thought. So
Well, they have enough to make a gotcha game. They gotta have a big enough list.
yeah.
Or not. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, they have a lot of characters. Yeah. That's it. I could talk
Awesome.
on and on and on about Library of Ruina and that world, but I won't.
Yeah. How are we on time? Should we start to wrap up here?
Yeah. We can start wrapping
Sounds
up.
Good.
I think that's it. That's all I wanted to say.
This is exactly what I envisioned this episode to be. Is just us taking turns ranting about stuff. So sounds good to me.
All right.
That's gonna do it for our favorite game series deep dive here. I hope that was somewhat enjoyable to listen to as it was to do. Sometimes it's just fun to geek out about stuff you like. So yeah. Kind of a sneak peek on the episode that will be coming out after this one. It'll be coming out the weekend that we're supposed to be moving, so it'll be a little lighter of a topic. We're probably gonna pool together a bunch of stuff that like we think would be interesting to talk about, but maybe isn't worth an entire episode, and kind of putting a bunch of that stuff together. Just because it'll be we still want to put something out, but we'll be busy with moving and getting all that situated. So sneak peek for a future one there.
Spoilers. No, I'm just kidding.
I've had a lot of spoilers in this episode. Yeah, you can maybe put that in the title. We didn't talk about any games that are new.
True. All right.
Do you have anything else to say, sir?
Me. That's it.
Is that no?
Yeah, that's no.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks again for listening, everyone. This has been episode 16 of the Friendgame podcast. Do the YouTube stuff is now what we're gonna say, and we'll see you in the next one.
Peace.